I think it really depends. I think they have a standard form that they stay at, but I think that's not to dismiss that they have the ability to actually change their form when needed for a particular reason.
Well, it could be because I also had this guest on who was a park ranger, or whatever you call it, and he wrote a book about owls. And, halfway through the interview, he was telling me that he was in his bedroom, and the way he lived, he didn't have to close the curtains, but he had a long driveway, coming up, facing his bedroom window. And he saw these 4 or 5 grays, walking towards, his house. And next thing he knows that, he claims he was abducted, but then all of a sudden he started, afterwards started seeing owls everywhere. And
seen owls. Yep.
Yeah, and
I'm just telling you today.
And the thing is, he would be out, doing his job out in the forest, and all of a sudden he'd see a whole bunch of owls go by, and it got to, for a while, it was everywhere. And I don't think he even thought about it. I said, do you ever think that when you were abducted by the Greys, that maybe because you're out, in the forest all the time with your job, maybe you've been infatuated all your life with owls. Whatever they did when they abducted you, they noticed that was in your brain, owls. So they implanted that. Every time you see an alien, for example, you don't see the alien, you see owls.
Yeah, I would just wish we had so much more time, because the one thing that I'm trying to, and this is why it's important, I need to write about that and teach this to people, and is our minds are programmable. What we see and everything comes filtered into our brains, and our brains can be programmed to filter out certain things and a substitute. Matter of fact, if one image comes in, then it's automatically substitute with another image, you see. So, and that could probably be implanted by suggestion or hypnosis, or it could be done by the ETs. There's a lot of times, for instance, when we're sleeping, we're not really, a lot of your abductions or things can take place during the sleep state, and you'll never remember anything, but yet you might be fully cognizant until all of a sudden there's a suggestion you don't remember it anymore, or what you do remember is something else. So it's something you got to be alarmed of, the fact that you can't really trust your mind sometimes. You got to really work hard to understand. That's why it's so important to having as open mind as possible, so that you're not programmed by anyone. That's why I avoid news. I avoid anything that's propaganda wise, from the scientific community, from the health community, from the pharmaceutical. The whole gamut, governmental, whatever. Mainstream media. I have to put that all out, because I know all that stuff will condition you and filter you, whatever you see.
Oh yeah. One thing I will say, on the 27th, which if you want to come back on the show and we can do 2 hours of whatever you want to talk about, I do have the 27th open. So you might want to write that down, and we can go into all these things. I can ask you questions, and you can, try to answer them, and we can, get into a debate and a great conversation about all this stuff.
I know. There were so many different experiences. The one that me and Anita, and maybe this is a tease for the next time, because we got a few minutes left, but we did attend a function called the Sasquatch Summit down in Ocean Shores a couple of years ago, and we just so happened to, of course, I appreciate her psychic sense, and we were just driving down the beach, and she felt an extreme sadness, this emanating of sadness coming from the beach area. And at first I thought it was had to do with long-lost sailors that had passed away and things of this nature, and we... Well, it come to find out, as we went back down there and we located an area of intensity of this, and then my psychic sense started coming in and started interpreting some of this. Well, it wasn't a ship, and did you consider it was like a spaceship, like an ET ship or something? And then the bells started going off on her mind. So, yeah, that's what I'm feeling this. So long story short, and I may go into this a little bit more with time because it kind of goes on and on a little bit. Turns out that there was a portal on the beach. There were some interdimensional beings that had come through a different universe, and something malfunctioned on their portal, and they got stuck in between realities here. And they've been here a long, long, long time and could not communicate with anyone. And the fact that she was able to find a conduit into their in-between world or whatever through communication, it did get, the sadness started going away, like there was hope that something could be worked out at some point in time. But then something happened to me when I was at the summit, which was at the casino down there. And I sat there, and something told me that I got a pen and paper out and started doing automatic writing. I actually wrote 3 full pages of information they were trying to relate to me, and it was just amazing stuff. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I placed it on the Planet Sasquatch. I think I did, actually. The story about that, but actually the whole transcript of what they told me. And some of the stuff I couldn't understand that had to do with conduits of energy that they traveled through. Well, my later studies about the energy ley lines is where some of these interdimensional beings were actually using the ley lines, energy lines, to actually go to different parts of the world. So that's kind of like a brief summary of what happened and everything, and it was just like an amazing story. Is there any really concrete proof that I could tell? And it was a complete psychic experience, but there was no way in the world I was going to sit down and be able to just, it was almost like words coming in my mind, and I was just simply like someone's telling me stuff and I'm dictating it. I'm just writing it down.
Interesting.
And I'm not really understanding what I'm writing down necessarily. So that happened. It just goes on and on. So, I mean, that was an amazing experience. But the most amazing things that happened recently is just our continuous contact that we have here in the Cascades and up in the Greenwater area, and especially like if you the link that I provided, the third set of pictures is probably one of the clearest pictures of the face of a Bigfoot looking at me from up in the trees. Is on the third picture shown there.
Well, I got to ask you a question here, and a favor. When the weather gets better, in a few months after we get through all that ice and cold and snow, have you ever thought of taking a picture of our universe, like a 5x7 or 8x10, photo, and put it down where you're seeing the little people or the Bigfoot in that area to see if they, and put a marker next to it or something, okay? And see if they respond with anything. It'd be a good test.
Pinpointing, like they're from a different part of the universe.
Yeah, if they draw something, like a line going out of our universe, it'd be interesting because, if they did something like that, it would be, more proof that they're not from our place.
Well, I honestly, I don't think any of us really are truly. And if you go back far enough, it's just I know there was natural species of beings on this earth, but the human being that we us to be today, and the Bigfoots and the other intelligent beings that actually exist, and especially through the mythologies that have been taught, I don't think any of us necessarily are natural born to the earth. If you go back far enough.
I think we were brought here as slaves because, if you go like the pyramids and stuff like that, regardless, I've had guests on the show, talking how the pyramids were made and all that stuff. It's common sense, and you don't even have to have a degree in science to figure out if you have slaves taking this big stone, it weighs so many tons, right? And you're trying to go through the desert, through all this sand, up and down, because it's not level, and trying to roll it for 20 miles. You wouldn't have enough slaves to bring enough to build even one pyramid, let alone even complete one, because they would die off because of the exertion, the heat, and all this stuff. So, and on top of it, there's no way man, even now, We could not build a pyramid precise as what the pyramids are. We already know that.
No.
I mean, they have come up with ideas. Well, it could be done this way. It could be done that this. Baloney. I think it was done by, well, from some other race. It probably came down here, and that's where we got our start of humans. Because even going in the caves and in the Egyptian drawings, it shows men flying in the sky wearing spacesuits and a helmet. Now, let's face it, at that time frame, you wouldn't comprehend that.
Nope. And honestly, I know darn good and well, anybody that does any amount of research, of course I've done quite a bit in the last few years and everything, I just come to, it's because people don't think. They don't do the research. The conclusion you come to is that we're dealing with advanced technology and advanced civilization that we are not even close to, that existed before. Pure and simple. We didn't start, it wasn't just one civilization. There was a very complex civilization, very highly advanced, and some kind of disaster took them out.
Happened.
Then we started all over again, and we started over the humans.
Yeah, and we've probably been rebooted on this planet at least 2 or 3 times.
Well, the Indians, the Hopi talks about 5 different worlds.
Oh, yeah.
The Hopi Indians. And we're going into the 5th world, and we are at the edge of this old one.
Very close, I think.
You can see things falling apart, and you can see that maybe that's why all this paranormal activity is happening, because things are happening now, and things are cooking.
Well, it seems, too, honestly, the Bigfoot, UFOs, and aliens in the past year, it's really gotten very popular on talk shows. I've been talking to, like, Dave at Space Out Radio. I've talked to some other talk show hosts. We've been talking off and on for the last week or two. They noticed the same thing. In the last 8 months, talking about UFOs, aliens, and Bigfoot have jumped up, while talking about ghost hunting is dropped off. Yes.
Well, it's because there's more experiences. Even our group here in Greenwater, the different individuals are now experiencing on a regular basis paranormal activity or things like moving things. Yeah, my friend Barb actually saw a napkin move in her house, and it was pulled out from underneath a coffee cup. I mean, she watched it move, being pulled out, and she went outside and looked a dark silhouette figure. It was a Bigfoot standing by the tree. That did that.
Yeah, that is scary.
And moved the candle. I mean, it's happening all the time now.
That's one thing I really wish, like when you mentioned that you saw a Bigfoot and a combination, or it's transforming or whatever it was doing. I don't know. And I could be 180% wrong. But, I had an encounter with myself back in the early 2000s with a friend of mine who was a medical doctor with a Bigfoot. When I think about all the shows I've done, all the research I've done for the years, doing paranormal radio off and on for all my years and broadcasting, I really kind of lean towards, I got a funny feeling they shapeshift. I don't know if they're actually a Bigfoot or if they're an alien or whatever they are. I do feel that, if you're out in the woods, right, you're going to think of things like bears, lions, cougars, and stuff like that. We don't know what they're doing out in the forest and out in the woods. And, maybe they come to a conclusion, well, that is one subject that the majority of people are scared of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. They do shape. There is shape-shifting capability. So that is unquestionable. And I think they can appear as animals sometimes, or anything that they need to be. Because they can also disappear, too. So, or be translucent, or any other form that we were talking about.
Well, they're a lot more intelligent than we give them credit for. So I got sometimes, in the case where me and my friend, ran into one, either it had a mate and got where we were before us, but you know what? It could have killed us. It didn't do that, but it sure scared us and got us out of the area real fast. But, it whatever it was very intelligent. And sometimes I wonder if they're actually way more intelligent than, I hate to say it, me or you.
Oh, well, I've already come to that conclusion completely. I come to that conclusion already that they are. That well, they have knowledge that we lack about our